Hey guys, how's it going? It's Kara here with another Exos Heroes video. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about the top 5 mistakes I made in Exos Heroes. Okay, so the first mistake is definitely gold. One of, if not the biggest bottlenecks in the game. And managing your gold is incredibly important on how, if you want to progress in the game. So the big thing is what gold is used for is going to be increasing your gear and then also enhancing your character. What you really want to do is make sure you're doing that as efficiently as possible and you're not wasting them on characters that are not that good, or you're doing them in the most efficient way in the sense that when it comes to the odds it gives you, because sometimes it's not even going to give you, there's potential when it comes to enhancing that you could do stuff 50%, 25% success rate, but the gold's always going to stay the same. So here, let me give you an example. So here is Baraka here. We can enhance him. He's 6-star, and we could take him up to, it fully enhanced. He's enhanced 2 right now. We can enhance him. If I were to do a 4-star here, it's 25%, but it's still 20k gold. If I wanted to do a 6-star, it's 20k gold, but still 100%. So I highly recommend when you're doing enhancing that applies for every single star tier. So if he was 4-star, I could do a 4-star and it'd be 100%. Definitely only do your enhancing when you have the correct star amount. You could argue that it's worth it potentially if you have the right typing. You know how it's you have the correct typing on here, you get a increased boost here on the percentage. Maybe 50%, you go 55%. You could argue it's worth it. I don't think so. I just slowly get the enhancement up to the point where you slowly get a 6-star, slowly get a 5-star. If you have a 5-star going up to a 6-star, so you get that 100%. So you're not wasting any gold here, because you'll eventually get the enhancement materials here through challenges, and you just slowly farm them and get them. Unless you're at a point where you think that if you enhance this character, you're going to be able to beat a certain challenge for that day, and you absolutely have to do it, then it might be worth it to take that loss. But over time, if you just slowly do it with 100% as much as possible, then you're going to save a lot of gold in the long run. And then next two about gold is when it comes to weapons. And you can burn through a ton of gold if you do this weapon awaken thing when you're at max level. See how it's 160k gold here? That's a massive amount of gold. And I highly recommend not doing it too often, if not at all. Maybe, for example, I did it on Bathory up to 4 because Bathory needs to have the most attack. So I feel like making sure that I don't have to worry about any other character getting to the point where they have more attack than her is worth it. But you're paying 160k gold for only 30 attack, which is almost never worth it unless there are certain thresholds like that. For example, her attack needs to be the highest, so she applies Tranquil to everyone. And if that's going to be the thing that limits you, that it might be worth it. But most of the time it's not, especially when you get to the point where you are really trying to weapon awaken and the percentages start to go down. So this is for 5. You're paying 168k gold for almost a coin flip to just not even hit it, which is terrible value for gold. And one of my mistakes I made doing that in the beginning, I spammed it on, like, for example, this one, that's a 5, but that's even an epic piece. That's not even a legendary piece. That was or a faded piece. That was before I even had faded gear. I just wanted to see what happened. It's just a massive gold sink. Wish I could take that back, but oh well. And then lastly, a lot of gold can be spent here when it comes to faded pieces of gear and you're trying to roll for different types. And I highly recommend being very careful with this. And because you could burn through a ton of gold here. Here, let me go to it. It's here. If you want to switch this, you could spend 80k gold and then also 20 of these avarice coins to be able to switch from like whatever piece to 20% chance of one of the other ones, because there's 6 options and it's going to, obviously not pick the one that you have. So it's going to be, you have 1 in 5 to be able to hit the one you're going for. How I do it personally is I have a few of them that I have set that I really like. For example, I don't really like red too much, but green is good for Rara, for example. A blue I really like for multiple characters, so I'm really looking for blue. And so I'm not looking for just one, I'm looking for a certain type. And then if I get the one I like, I'll just stop. And then eventually I'll get, more pieces and I can roll that other piece that doesn't have necessarily the type I like, or it's a type I've already completed too many sets for. For example, purple, I have like 2 sets for machine, I have a couple sets for. So I'm just kind of over those pieces. Don't really like red, and then I just go for like blue, yellow, or green. And so it's at least giving me I'm not spending 80K gold for just a 1 in 5. I'm spending it for, a 3 in 5, which makes it still, it's massively expensive and it's super in-game stuff, but that's a way to really save some gold if you don't just spam like, I need to have a purple one or I need to have a blue one. You're going to burn through a ton of gold really fast. So that's it for gold. Just be really careful with gold. Make sure you're hitting your challenges every single day when it comes to the avarice and for the actual gold thing. It's really important that you're doing that. And let's move on to the next mistake. Okay. So next is going to be making sure you're saving your characters. And you really want to be saving at least one copy of each character because this game does a really good job of you needing to have a very deep roster. And you're going to, if you're not saving your characters, you're going to miss out on a lot of opportunity. The big obvious one is going to be from challenges. When it comes to the special challenges here, you're going to need very particular characters to be able to even enter to do them. Like, for example, I think this is all pretty common knowledge, but you need like specific rares. So this one, you're going to need Jean or Ekin, which you're not going to look at as characters that are that great, but you're going to want, you need to keep them if you're going to want to do that special challenge. And then here too, you got other specific characters that are not great, but you're going to be required to use. Like, for example, I don't even know how to pronounce his name, but this guy, garbage character, but you need him. This guy too, garbage character, but you're going to need him. So definitely keep an eye out for your rares. Always keep at least one copy of your rares. And then it also applies to uncommons and rares too, or uncommons and commons, because they're going to be used for dispatches. You're going to need them for dispatches. You're going to need, exploration. Exploration, I believe, is rare and below. Yeah, this is going to be rare and below. This is going to be uncommon and below, but you can get them up. See, like, notice how I have this character higher than normal, but this is uncommon and below. So you're going to need characters like even all the way down to that. It's just incredibly important that you're not throwing away those characters, even if they're garbage. Always keep them at least one copy. You can always sell the additional copies, especially if the character's really bad, and get some extra gold that way. But at least keep one copy in your roster so you can enter in dispatches and for challenges. Super important. Even if the character is absolutely trash, always keep them. And then lastly, one thing I forgot to mention too is you're going to need these characters also for the side story. You need a lot of really garbage characters for the side story, so don't neglect on this. Make sure you're keeping these characters for that. A lot of the requirements for this are here. Let me show you some of the requirements that you go suggest. You need, a Lamin, garbage character, Kasoki, and Clement, and then you need 2 commons and 2 machines. So not only do you need 2 commons, you need 2 machine commons, I don't believe any of these are commons, or these are machine. Yeah, so you need 2 common machine characters, plus you need these characters here. I believe Kasoke is used in multiple challenges, so it's not a terrible investment here, but look how garbage these characters are on paper, but you're still going to be required to use them if you want to be able to complete this challenge. Another bottleneck, I think, gold and polished material are the 2 biggest bottlenecks in this game, and you got to be really careful with how you use these. And when it comes to increasing what polished materials are used for is going to be increasing your like how strong your weapons are. For example, taking it from 40 to from 1 to 40, from 40 to 50, all that stuff. You're going to find that when you want to, for example, here, let me try to increase one of these. Like, we got one here. This one is we're able to forge it up. You'll find yourself eventually getting to the point where all this forged material, you're just going to have a ton of it. In the beginning, I was always like, when it came to these meteorites, or when it came to these ones too, the missing meteorites, I was always at like 0 and waiting for them to be able to upgrade from like 50 to 60 or from 40 to 50. But eventually what happens is you're just going to get a ton of these because there's going to be no point because you're going to run out of polished material. Because taking a piece of gear from 40 to 50 or from especially 50 to 60 is just an insane amount of polished material. So you want to make sure you're using it very efficiently. I find myself nowadays, what I do is I just try to get pieces of gear to 50. What I used to do is a second I got a faded piece, I just wanted to take it straight up. But you're going to gain a lot of efficiency if you go for at maximum 50 first, because you're going to be able to spread out your roster. You're going to start to find that you need a lot of battle power in a lot of areas. And if you, instead of spending, it takes like almost the same amount of polished material to go from like 1 to 50 than it does to go from like 50 to 60, if not more. It's like absolutely crazy. I don't quote me on that, but I'm just trying to give you an idea exactly. It takes a ton of polish to go from 50 to 60. You're going to run out. You might think you have a ton in your inventory that you haven't used, but that's going to all go away the second you try to take a piece of gear from 50 to 60. And so I highly recommend when you're doing this, don't take pieces of gear like your legendary pieces from 50 to 60, like almost never. Um, Save that for just faded pieces of gear. Because I used to, when I didn't have much faded pieces of gear and I wanted to try to beat these challenges, I was upgrading a lot of faded gear or a lot of legendary gear to like 50. I upgraded a weapon up to 60, as you saw earlier. It's just a massive waste of resources that could have been put to better use in a faded piece. Because not only do the faded pieces obviously have more attack, but they have this critical hit rating. They have extra stats, as in like dodge rating. So even when they're massively like lower leveled with significantly less polish use, they're still massively better pieces. And then they give you the extra guardian stone. They give you extra critical hit. So it's just. Well, and then lastly, they're very free to play friendly, so it's not like something that you're just not going to get very much of too. So I think it's actually something to recommend is just be very careful when upgrading legendary pieces of gear. Almost do it never, unless you're struggling with a challenge. Like you absolutely can't beat the challenge. You need to upgrade some of your gear to actually be able to beat it, so you can start farming those coins to actually be able to get the faded gear. Then absolutely do it. That's 100%. But in most cases, I don't think you're going to need that. I don't remember me having too much high level legendary gear to actually be able to complete the challenges. If you manual it, you should be able to just do it. Eventually, when you get the characters, and you definitely need some pretty good characters with pretty good gear. But so just keep that in mind. If I were to do it again, I would only take my legendary pieces to just 30 tops, and then purely commit to every single faded piece I got, especially early, and get that up as high as possible. One last thing I want to say is just how big of a difference in battle power or combat power you get from legendary pieces. So this one, for example, is level 40, but faded, so it's 26k versus 20k at level 50. Point being is combat power becomes a big deal when it comes to your air squadron, when you want to actually do more damage for your team, when you're using your entire collection of your fire characters or your frost characters. And then lastly, it's really important too when it comes to embodiment of avarice. If you're trying to hit, go for an example, like rank C in the beginning, when you're trying to go unlock that second row, you really want to maximize as much combat power as possible. And this is the way to do it. You almost don't even want to have legendary pieces because you just don't have enough combat power to mess with embodiment of avarice if it's not all faded. You want to make sure as soon as possible you're able to enter as many special dungeons as possible. You really want to be focusing on Blessing Sanctum. You want to be able to make sure you get into the Blessing Sanctum special challenge every single day of the week. It's incredibly important to do that because that is the one that's going to give you the most materials to be able to roll for faded gear. And materials being Star of Fates. Gives you every roll is going to be 8, 16, or 24. Which is an incredible amount of the Star of Fate material compared to the other ones. I think the most you're ever going to get is like 7 per roll, whereas this one, the absolute minimum is 8. So it's just such a good bang for your buck. And here's an example of the characters you need for today on Fire Day. For example, you're going to want a rare wizard fire male, and you're going to want a rare warrior. And rare warrior just so happens to be Dion, and then the rare wizard is Oos. If you don't have those characters, there's at least a couple ways you can farm for them. It's going to be here in the Solar Seal section. You're going to want to start building characters up that you don't have that are required for those challenges. And I would check here every single time it refreshes, which is every hour. Eventually, you can build these up for legendary characters. It's going to take 100 per 5, and then for rare characters, it's going to take 50 per 5. And then you need 50 of these memory fragments to be able to complete the character. There's a lot of characters potentially in here, if you don't have them, that you can farm up slowly and then at least unlock one of those sections for you per day. Just make sure you're doing this. This is going to be the best way to progress in the game. This is going to get you, it's going to help you with Arena. This is the thing you want to be focusing on. If you don't have the good characters, you don't have the god tier characters yet, you definitely want to have the faded gear ready for them as soon as possible. So when you actually finally get that character, you throw that on, they actually can compete instead of just being super gear deprived when you finally pull them. Okay. And then so my last mistake that I was making in this game is not pulling correctly. It's very easy to spam a lot of zest when it comes to pulling. And as the game's been out longer, more and more people are starting to understand what to pull and what not to pull. I think the big argument currently is between whether you go for fake core and increased chance events, or are strings worth it, stuff like that. It's just pretty much, it comes down to, is this character worth it? Should I pull for him? Is this should I go for a string? In my opinion, I think the only thing that's super good value are going to be very good fake or increased chance characters, and it's incredibly situational based on your account and stuff like that. But rule of thumb, it's going to be the fake or increased chance is going to be the way to go. And then what I used to do, for example, when I first started playing the game, I didn't realize that it was just going to be a weekly thing. I ended up pulling Xeon very early, like I pulled him first pull, but then I just had all this zest, and so I just wanted to pull more characters, so I kept pulling on a string. It was just a massive waste. Also, what I did is I did a lot of the strings. I think for most people, strings are an absolute horrible value. If you're spending, they're still a horrible value, except you can actually pay through it and then finish it sooner. That's really it. If you get lucky, cool. Most people don't get lucky. There's so many drawbacks to a string that it's very hard for me to recommend a string. The only string I can even recommend someone is the Bathory string, just because Bathory is just such a incredible character on an account. You know, she's so game changing. She helps you in arena. She helps you in so many, like every facet of the game. She's just so important. So that string is arguable, but all the other strings are, it's very hard for me to want to consider. The one that also got good value currently is FC Ridley string, because you have FC Annie and FC Ridley. That's an amazing string nowadays. Another string in the future is going to be this Tantalo one. Even the ones that I think are really good are still pretty, questionable. Another one you can potentially argue is this one coming out in 20 days, because you're getting two god tier characters here in Xeon and Anastasia. Look at the rares. It's just you're losing so much value in the rares and legendaries you get from these increased rates here, and the moves you're getting, and the mileage over time. I don't. It's almost like I don't care how good these characters are over time. As long as you keep pulling on these, you're going to get so much more out of your account. But I think there is some caveats to that. What I ended up doing is I pulled on strings. I pulled on the same event when I shouldn't have. Just be really careful on your zest, because in the beginning you get a ton of zest, and then it really slows down, and you're going to be having to spend if you're going to want to get a character. So how I look at strings now is I don't pull on them, but only pull on a string that you're willing to go to pity on. And the character needs to be good. Rule of thumb is going to be the gold fake cores are going to be the way, where it's at. Be sure to check Reddit, watch YouTube videos on if you want to get an idea what people think of the characters. Most of the time it's going to be don't pull on anything unless it's an increased rate string and it's like a gold one, and people are saying it's really good. Those are going to be pretty much the main thing. The strings are going to be mostly garbage. I have a few exceptions. Like if you went for Bathory on a string, and even if you're free to play, like I don't blame you, to be honest, just because she's so impactful, and I don't see her leaving the meta anytime soon. But with these games, you never really know. There's my 5 mistakes in Exos Heroes. Hopefully you guys don't make them. If you have any questions, feel free, always down in the comments. I pretty much answer everyone's questions down below. So definitely hit me up there. Also my Discord, trying to get that going. I got a clan. Hit me up on Discord if you want to join my clan. Looking for new members. We just made it. It's brand new. We had a lot of technical difficulties with trying to change like leadership on like the whale pod with Darth Micro, and nothing could be done. So I had to make a new one, which is unfortunate. And it sucks that I had to leave that because of a bug. Active player, be sure to hit me up for that, and we'll get you in there. So with that, you guys have a good one.